so admire your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
like
Thank you.
Jordan Klepler meets, TikTok, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, Jordan. It's Jordan Klepper. It's like him, and Sacha Baron Cohen are like my biggest influences.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you're really like up there.
Thank you.
I think that's so amazing is how daring you really are. You know what I mean? And almost more than Jordan.
Well, because people see Jordan coming. They know who he is. They know he's with Comedy Central. At this point, I mean, he's Jordan Klepper. Yeah, he's not really. And I'm assuming if he probably has like security with him, to make sure.
But still, you know what? I mean, I'm a fan of his for sure. But I think the fact that you like masquerade yourself with the OANN and the CNN things, and
so I get a different response. I get a different response from them because I feel it's very funny because I feel like when they feel like you're allied with them and that there's no judgment, I feel like they say a lot more, and that's kind of telling to me because I feel like there's got to be a level to which they know that what they believe is actually crazy. Because I feel like when you combat some of these people in an interview, they don't say as much as you want them to. And I feel like when you actually let them talk and let them get very comfortable, suddenly they're telling you, Hugo Chavez rigged the election. And, and he owns all the Dominion voting machines, and he called Biden to congratulate him. And you're like, this was a man who's been dead. Like, this man died several years ago. He's long dead. And this is not like contested, stuff like that, where they go real out there, and you're like, but they don't give that to you if they think you're
but that's also a testament to a good interviewer.
Yeah. I have a lot of these interviews, and I never use them because I didn't want to sort of platform them. I've gotten to a method where I interview someone and I sort of take a scalpel to their like platforming their views. I only want to platform their stupidity.
Right.
And sometimes when they stay on message, the hardest ones are when I interviewed the Viking from the, I did that in December, and I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't use the full interview. I didn't post it because it was like he stayed on message. It was hard to really get him into something because I'd mentioned Hillary or Biden, and he actually, to his credit, never deviated. That woman as well, she didn't deviate from the message, and there's nothing to really get her on. So that was in my archives. I had to go look it up. And once the murder happened, I was like, you know what? I don't normally wouldn't want to platform, but I was like, I have to platform.
You always have to. Group. I think you're still sitting on a gem of a project that I still think you're formulating in your head. This is just me objectively speaking, because I only see it a minute here, a minute there. I watched that thing when you went to Washington. I watched that. I still think there's something else, because that's like very of the moment there in time. I think you probably have to look at, this is just my opinion, but I am very opinionated, but I think leading into the 2022 election, you have an opportunity to really find gems that could be used for like messaging, advertising, counter programming that, has the longevity that you really want this stuff to have, because you don't want it to only be good around January 6th of 2021. You want it to resonate. You want that mentality to almost be, you have an opportunity to remind people for the rest of days, like what we're up against.
Yeah.
Whereas Jordan and whatever, and these other people, they do it like for the laugh of the night. But I think you have this real like extended opportunity
to get to, it's actually very funny though, because it's I've sort of felt this responsibility, and And it's weird because I started out just making comedic TikToks, and it was and it just became very journalistic, because and it's still, yeah, and it's I still like am trying to fight for that identity as a comedian, but I still have that, feel like I have this social responsibility to sort of, to sort of broadcast what, and it's also weird because I know I've spent so much time with Trump supporters. I know their messaging ice cold. There's another guy who, he's on TikTok, and he and I, you've seen me do videos with him, Jolly Good Ginger.
Yeah.
He is someone, I've spent a lot of time with him, and that guy grew up in like the deep, like South, like the mountains, and more than half of his family are Trump supporter, QAnon, Confederate flag waving. He understands that culture like to a T, and he can talk with these people, and in a minutes they're like, "You're one of us." He actually would be like an amazing undercover agent, because you wouldn't suspect him for a second.
Just see, that's your show in a way.
Yeah, and it's sort of
leading up to the next 2 years. But again, it's like you're gonna have enough new material to get to.
When Jolly Good Ginger and I went to the rally in December, we knew that something bad was coming, because at the rally in December, there was violence in the air. It just felt like something was about to blow. I have an interview with a woman, small Jewish woman, very, very soft spoken. She never raised her voice, right? And on on its face, she would seem like a moderate Trump supporter. And she says, I think this is going to be the last peaceful protest we're going to see in quite some time. Yeah. So Trump 2020, he's going to be inaugurated January. And that was the most chilling interview, because she wasn't, because I just realized for me that the moderate voices of that group had shifted and been radicalized. And that was what was disturbing to me, because it wasn't, we're used to the radicalized Trump supporters screaming and but this, to see someone that was on their face, she was just, if you saw her, you would never think twice about her. She would fly totally under radar. The way she speaks is very calm, and for her to be like, yeah, there's going to be violence next time.
No, I'm sure there is, like, I couldn't compare that to a very calm housewife in Germany, 1942, 6 blocks away from Dachau, being like, oh yes, they're just killing the neighbor. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's this level of acceptance of violence and extremism that becomes second nature.
That's also what affected me, because you see Jacob Chansley, the Viking that I interviewed, I think it's the exact same mentality, because, you have to imagine some of these people in, Nazi Germany were, they were, probably nice people, and what they say, and
cultured, educated.
Yeah, they were radicalized to believe, with this, anti-Semitic propaganda. Now, like Jacob Chansley, because that messed me up, because when I saw him as the face of this, I was like, when I met him, when you meet him, he's actually he's a very nice, and he's a very genuine human being. Mm-hmm. He's one of those people that when they are speaking to you, their focus is, 100% on you, right? And they're fully engaged, and that, you appreciate that. And he doesn't have he doesn't seem nasty. He doesn't seem, there's no vitriol.
Vegan, my one thing is calm, right?
Yeah. So, and that kind of messed me up, and especially with a lot of other people that I spoke to, when you speak to some of these people, they believe these horrific things, but, generally, like, they're decent human beings. They've been radicalized, and it really was upsetting, because I was like, there's a lot of people that you speak, I mean, I'm interviewing these people for 15, 20 minutes.
Right,
You,
right.
you get to know them. And it was like, there's some people who I'm like, I cannot wait to humiliate you on the internet. Like, you're an asshole, you, I really don't like you. And there's some people that I'm like, you're a decent human being if you didn't believe this baseless nonsense. Like, you're just completely indoctrinated. And it sucks because I'm going to humiliate you, and you are a nice person. Oh well. It's there, there's those parallels between the radicalization where I'm sure there are people within not, I mean, a Jewish friend of mine, I was telling him about it. He's like, listen, don't feel bad about it, about doing assassinating these people on the internet, because
Right,
these
right.
people are, he's like, we have a term that, what do you call a nice Nazi? A Nazi. That's their term. Like, his attitude was like, a nice Nazi is a Nazi. Like, that's what you call them.
Between now and 2022, your thing should be something that still continues. You have to figure out, you should sit and talk to your people that you work with to how it
that's actually, since like the story is ongoing, that's actually not a bad idea of like, what's, because the story has not ended.
And I just think truth is it's just begun. And you are in the beginning of a part of American history where if you're able to successfully keep going into underground, I mean, you haven't even begun to explore that.
What I've realized is that when you talk about, people are very amenable to things. So when I talk to people and I'm wearing a MAGA hat and I'm talking with them, they don't feel combative, right? Yeah. So these Trump supporters they feel very combative towards the media. They don't trust any media. They only trust OAN and Newsmax, but they're extremely suspect. So the fact that I can be like, oh, I'm on your side, suddenly, they understand comorbidities. They understand that COVID is actually a real thing and it kills people. There's a lot of things they understand intuitively. Like, we spend a lot of time and effort trying to get people to understand, oh, this is a thing. They get it. And it's just, the problem is identity is sort of invading, and this political identity is sort of taking over your common sense. One of my interviews that went super viral was this COVID nurse. She is an emergency room nurse. She has worked on the front lines of COVID. There's not another human being that should know firsthand what the effects of COVID are. And she is an anti-masker. It is mind-blowing. Now, when I speak to her, over the course of 15 minutes, she understands it perfectly. She wears a mask at work and she knows why she has to wear a mask at work. Because it's never going to end. These people are radicalized, and it's been alarming because I can sort of see the future. I can see where everything's going, and I'm progressive, I'm very leftist. However, my being in touch with them, with this group, I can't relate with, when liberal media and when they celebrate something, I'm like, no, this is not good. We're not out of the woods. Because I know what's coming. Like, everyone's celebrating that Kamala and Biden are inaugurated, and we won the Senate, that's good. However, I know for a fact that the Patriot Party, this new movement that's populist, it's radical populism, they're mobilizing to give primary challenges to members of the GOP that are not in line. Like, if you're not, so they're going to give primary challenges. So you're going to get people in the Senate and House of Representatives that are just as crazy, if not crazier, than Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, more dangerous, I think, than Hawley, because I think Hawley is, I think he's actually more dangerous than the rest of them because his language is very sanitized. He's never going to say anything problematic. It's very sanitary language. It's very antiseptic feel. Even when he was talking about delaying the certification of the election, he was incredibly articulate about it, and it sounded very sanitized. It wasn't fiery. There wasn't vitriol. It actually sounded quite reasonable.
Right.
You know, we're going to delay certifying a democratic, fair election, and it's going to end. You know, like people like him, I think and there's more of them coming, and that's what's frightening. And the Tea Party did this already. I mean, you remember that when they went and they gutted their leadership, and replaced it with people that were insane. Like you thought the people that were already in power were terrible, and then the people that replaced them, you're like, this gets worse.
I think you're onto something great.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers, man. Have a lovely day, man. Cheers.